Pablo Escobar's shocking business secrets. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born on December 1, 1949, in Rio Negro, Colombia. His family lived modestly, with his father working as a farmer and his mother as a schoolteacher. Growing up in Medellín, Escobar displayed ambition from an early age, but opportunities for legitimate success were scarce in a country marked by deep inequality and corruption. As a teenager, Escobar began dabbling in crime, starting with small hustles like selling fake lottery tickets and stealing gravestones to resell. These petty crimes soon escalated as he immersed himself in the burgeoning smuggling trade. By his early 20s, Escobar was already involved in car theft and contraband, forging connections with powerful criminal networks that would later help him dominate the cocaine trade. The cocaine industry was just emerging in the 1970s, and Escobar saw its potential. He partnered with local producers to smuggle small amounts into the United States, using ingenious methods to evade law enforcement. His operations grew rapidly, and he soon gained a reputation for being both resourceful and ruthless. One lesser-known story from this period involves Escobar's early use of couriers. He recruited impoverished individuals to act as drug mules, ensuring their silence through a mix of financial incentives and intimidation. This strategy laid the foundation for his future empire, as he mastered the logistics of international drug trafficking. Even in his early days, Escobar's ambition was boundless. He once told friends he would either be a president or a millionaire, a statement that foreshadowed his rise to infamy. From his humble beginnings, Escobar embarked on a path that would ultimately change the face of Colombia and the world. Chapter 2. Building the Medellín Empire. By the late 1970s, Pablo Escobar had transitioned from small-time smuggler to one of the most powerful figures in Colombia's burgeoning cocaine trade. Recognizing the untapped potential of the U.S. market, he co-founded the Medellín Cartel, a criminal organization that would dominate global drug trafficking for over a decade. Escobar's empire was built on innovation and ruthlessness. He controlled every aspect of the supply chain, from coca cultivation in the Andean mountains to distribution networks in North America. This vertical integration allowed him to maximize profits and minimize risks. At the height of its power, the Medellín cartel supplied an estimated 80% of the cocaine consumed in the United States. His methods for smuggling drugs were as ingenious as they were audacious. Escobar used a fleet of private jets, hidden compartments in vehicles, and even submarines to transport cocaine. He relied on a vast network of loyal associates who were handsomely rewarded for their work. Lesser known, however, is how he established intricate bribery systems to ensure smooth operations at customs and law enforcement checkpoints. Escobar's ascent was marked by bloodshed. Rivals who refused to align with the Medellín cartel were swiftly eliminated. The infamous plata o plomo, silver or lead, ultimatum became his hallmark: accept a bribe or face death. This tactic instilled fear in law enforcement and ensured compliance from those in his path. One chilling example of his ruthlessness involved the assassination of a judge who threatened to expose cartel operations. Escobar's message was clear: no one was beyond his reach. By the early 1980s, his cartel had become a global powerhouse, spreading fear and corruption wherever it operated. Chapter 3. The Robin Hood of Medellín. Pablo Escobar cultivated a dual image during his rise to power: ruthless drug lord and benevolent benefactor. In Medellín's impoverished neighborhoods, he was revered as a hero. Escobar funded housing projects, built soccer fields, and donated generously to schools and hospitals. These acts earned him the nickname El Patron and endeared him to communities suffering under systemic neglect. However, Escobar's philanthropy was far from altruistic. His investments in Medellín's slums served as a shield, fostering loyalty among residents who acted as his informants. Entire neighborhoods became his eyes and ears, alerting him to police activity and potential threats. This community support made it nearly impossible for authorities to penetrate his operations. A lesser-known story involves Escobar financing an entire neighborhood's Christmas celebrations, distributing gifts and food to hundreds of families. While celebrated as a gesture of goodwill, the event also served as a recruitment drive for young men to join his growing network of enforcers and couriers. Behind the facade of charity lay a dark reality. Escobar ruled through fear, and dissent was met with brutal violence. Community leaders who resisted his influence were often assassinated, and families who defied him were forced to flee. His grip on Medellín extended beyond generosity. It was a calculated strategy to ensure dominance. Escobar's dual image, as both a benefactor and a killer, reflected the contradictions of his reign. While he provided for the poor, his empire inflicted untold suffering on countless families. His so-called Robin Hood persona was ultimately a mask, concealing the ruthless criminal who thrived on power and fear. Chapter 4: Blood on His Hands, the Reign of Terror. By the 1980s, Pablo Escobar's Medellín cartel had grown into a global cocaine empire, but its expansion came at a horrific cost. Escobar ruled through a combination of bribery and violence, enforcing loyalty with his infamous plata o plomo, means silver or lead policy. Accept his bribes or face death. This brutal approach left a bloody trail across Colombia. One of Escobar's most shocking acts was the 1989 bombing of Avianca Flight 203, which killed 107 people. The attack was aimed at assassinating a presidential candidate, but it also claimed the lives of innocent civilians. This act of terrorism solidified Escobar's reputation as one of the most dangerous men in the world. Escobar also declared war on the Colombian government when it sought to extradite drug lords to the United States. He targeted judges, politicians, and law enforcement officials, offering bounties for their deaths. Over 600 police officers were killed in Medellín during this period, creating an atmosphere of fear and chaos. A lesser-known tactic of Escobar's reign involved car bombings in urban centers, designed to destabilize cities and pressure the government to abandon its extradition policies. Entire neighborhoods were turned into war zones, with civilians bearing the brunt of the violence. One survivor recalled the horror of a car bomb that destroyed her home, leaving her family scarred for life. Escobar's terror extended beyond Colombia. His cartel's reach spanned continents, fueling drug addiction and violence in the United States, Europe, and beyond. Despite his public image as a Robin Hood figure, Escobar's actions revealed a man driven by greed and a thirst for power. His reign of terror left Colombia scarred, with a legacy of fear that still lingers today. Chapter 5: The Hacienda Nápoles, a symbol of excess. Pablo Escobar's Hacienda Nápoles was more than a home. It was a monument to his wealth and power. Spanning over 7,000 acres, the estate featured private airstrips, sprawling mansions, and even a zoo with exotic animals like hippos and elephants, imported illegally from Africa. At its peak, Hacienda Nápoles epitomized Escobar's opulence and excess. The estate served multiple purposes. Beyond being a luxurious retreat, it was a hub for cartel operations. The private airstrips were critical for transporting cocaine, while the remote location provided a safe haven for planning and hosting meetings. Hidden within the estate were vaults filled with cash and weapons, ensuring Escobar's readiness for any threat. One chilling story from Hacienda Nápoles involves Escobar's paranoia about betrayal. Allegedly, he fed a disloyal associate to his pet hippos as a warning to others. While the veracity of this tale is debated, it underscores the atmosphere of fear that surrounded him. Despite its grandeur, Hacienda Nápoles became a liability. Its opulence attracted attention, and as Escobar's empire crumbled in the early 1990s, the estate fell into disrepair. Rivals and authorities used the property's extravagance as a symbol of his corruption and greed. Today, Hacienda Nápoles has been transformed into a theme park, a stark contrast to its dark past. However, the hippos, which escaped and bred in the wild, remain an invasive species in Colombia, a living reminder of Escobar's reign. The estate's transformation stands as a testament to Colombia's efforts to move past the shadow of its most infamous drug lord. Chapter 6: The Fall, from Kingpin to Fugitive. By the early 1990s, Pablo Escobar's empire was collapsing under pressure from Colombian authorities, the DEA, and rival cartels. Once a powerful kingpin, Escobar became a desperate fugitive, constantly on the run. The turning point came in 1991 when he negotiated his surrender, agreeing to imprisonment in exchange for leniency. However, this prison, La Catedral, was anything but ordinary. La Catedral, designed by Escobar, featured a bar, jacuzzi, and soccer field. From within, he continued to run the Medellín cartel, ordering hits and managing operations. When Colombian authorities discovered this, they planned to transfer him to a real prison. Escobar escaped before they could act, plunging him into a life of constant flight. As a fugitive, Escobar relied on a dwindling network of loyalists. His paranoia deepened as former allies joined Los Pepis, a paramilitary group funded by rivals to dismantle his empire. Los Pepes systematically targeted his associates, property and resources, leaving Escobar increasingly isolated. One infamous story highlights Escobar's desperation. Hiding in the mountains with his family, he reportedly burned $2 million in cash to keep his daughter warm. This act, while symbolic of his vast wealth, underscored his declining power. Escobar's downfall culminated on December 2, 1993. Tracked through a phone call to his son, authorities raided his hideout in Medellín. A rooftop shootout ensued, ending with Escobar's death. The image of his lifeless body surrounded by soldiers marked the end of an era. While his death dismantled the Medellín cartel, it left a power vacuum that rival cartels quickly filled. Escobar's fall revealed the fleeting nature of power built on violence and greed, but it also signaled the beginning of a long battle for Colombia to reclaim its future. Chapter 7. The King Falls. On December 2, 1993, Pablo Escobar's reign came to a bloody end. Once one of the world's most powerful drug lords, Escobar spent his final days as a fugitive, cut off from his vast empire. Hiding in Medellín, his hometown, he relied on a small group of loyalists and frequent calls to his family, which ultimately led to his downfall. Escobar's location was revealed when authorities triangulated his position through a phone call to his son. A special task force closed in on his hideout, and a rooftop shootout ensued. Cornered and outnumbered, Escobar was killed. Whether he was shot by police or took his own life remains a topic of debate, but the image of his body sprawled on the rooftop became a symbol of Colombia's fight against the drug trade. The aftermath of Escobar's death was bittersweet. The Medellín cartel collapsed, but the void it left was quickly filled by rival organizations like the Cali cartel. Violence persisted, and Colombia's battle against drug trafficking continued, highlighting the systemic nature of the problem. Escobar's death had profound implications for his family. His wife and children fled Colombia, seeking asylum in foreign countries, where they lived in relative obscurity. Many of his close associates were hunted down and killed by rivals or law enforcement, further dismantling his network. While his death marked the end of an era, Escobar's legacy endures. His story serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of greed and the human cost of the drug trade. For Colombia, it was a step toward reclaiming its future, but the scars left by his reign remain visible to this day. Final chapter: the legacy of Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar's reign as the king of cocaine left a profound impact on Colombia and the world. His story is a chilling reminder of how power, corruption, and violence can destabilize societies. Escobar's actions reshaped the global drug trade, fueling addiction crises in the United States and Europe, while leaving a trail of destruction in his home country. Escobar's wealth and influence exposed the fragility of Colombia's institutions. By bribing or intimidating officials, he blurred the lines between government and organized crime. The bombings, assassinations, and rampant violence he orchestrated paralyzed Colombia's judiciary and law enforcement, creating a culture of fear that lingers to this day. Globally, his operations set the blueprint for modern drug cartels, demonstrating how illicit empires could exploit poverty and weak governance to thrive. The Medellín cartel's success highlighted the demand for drugs in wealthier nations, sparking debates about the effectiveness of the war on drugs. Escobar's story also underscores the importance of addressing the root causes of organized crime. He rose to power by exploiting economic inequality and systemic neglect, presenting himself as a benefactor to the poor. Without tackling these underlying issues, the conditions that allow figures like Escobar to emerge will persist. Finally, his life serves as a stark warning about the destructive nature of unchecked ambition. Escobar's pursuit of power and wealth came at the cost of countless lives, leaving a legacy of pain and instability. While his death marked the end of an era, the lessons from his reign remain relevant in the ongoing battle against organized crime. Thanks for watching this episode of Underworld Chronicles. If you enjoyed uncovering the dark secrets of crime history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing family of true crime enthusiasts. Don't miss out. New stories drop every week. Keep exploring, watch the other videos, and dive deeper into the world of crime. Let us know in the comments what story you'd like to see next. Until then, stay tuned for more tales from the underworld.